All right. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining once again on this Monday evening. Wanted to show you that video that was actually done by some friends of mine. I know that they made it look like they are some recent shots of things that are going on right now in our city, but actually that was done after the Freddie Gray incident. And I really want you to know that this particular episode is a little tough for me, a little hard for me, because one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I did through this medium is to try to be uplifting and, of course, be engaging as well as entertaining. Like last week, we had my family and friends on, and that was fun, received well. Really appreciate that. But this is about keeping it real and having real conversations about things that are going on. And I'll let you know, I really started feeling some anger build up really Wednesday night after having watched some different scenes on the news and reading different things and, having seen what happened to Brother Floyd and all that, and started thinking back to some of the other tragedies that have happened around this nation. It seems to become more and more frequent, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But I'm just going to be open and honest. I mean, for my realness, I was really upset and angry, and I'm trying to be careful with my wording, just because of the title I hold and all that. And I know not everybody can accept some of the words that may come out my mouth. But I do want you to know, just because they don't always come out, don't means they ain't there. You just have to be able to tame the tongue, as they say. So I'm doing my best to do that. But I was really, really upset about what's been going on, what's been happening in the news, and how we're responding to some things. So I asked that Pastor John Shearin, and you met him before. He was actually my first guest on Keep It Real. I asked that he came and talked with me tonight. And once again, I invite you guys to send comments. I'll give you the phone number again if you want to call in and share. But at the top of this right here and right now, I want to make sure that, because I know I have many different people that tune in, very diverse audience. I want you to know this. I'm not, I'll speak and I'll let him speak for himself, but I'm not mad at white people. I don't consider myself to be racist. Just to let you know, my father was in the Air Force, so I was an Air Force brat growing up. So I was exposed to different races all along. And I tell it often when I do my cultural classes for my job, I never heard the N-word until I moved to Baltimore. And now keep in mind, we're talking about back in the 60s, early 70s, where racism, it was still felt, but I never heard the N-word at all, no matter where we may have been stationed, anything like that. That's not to say it wasn't ever used. That's not to say my mother and my father never heard it. But for me, it didn't happen until I got back into Baltimore and I got around my own people, my own family, and I heard in this and in that and all that. So it was, for me, to some regard, it was a different culture for me in that sense. But, I enjoy working with diverse people. I want to be a global missionary. So that means I have to be able to embrace everybody, because I've come to the understanding that, Peter said it. He said, God, he is not partial to anybody. All he wants is everybody to love and worship him and appreciate what he did through his son, Jesus Christ. And he didn't do it for white people, black people, Chinese people, African people. He didn't do it for one specific type of person. He did it for the entire world. And that's how I choose to look at it. But at the same time, I'm not blind to things either. I've been subjugated to some things in the past, and we may get into that or not. But I want my friends that are Caucasian, my friends that are Asian, whatever. I don't care who you are. I can't say I don't really care, but I really don't care what religion you are. I just want you to understand that what I know and what I believe to be true, I want you to at least give it a look and try to understand that salvation only comes through Jesus Christ. And that's going to be my story, and that's what I'm going to stick to. But I want you to know that I'm not here to try to hate on anybody. But I think we need to make sure that we have a real conversation. So again, give us a call if you want to talk, or give a comment. I'll relay it, and I'll be happy to take it. Hey Ray, thank you for joining. Hey Tasha, thank you for joining. But now let's welcome Pastor John Shearin again. I appreciate you coming back on. Wait a minute, looks like you got your mute on.
All right.
There you
I didn't know if you could unmute me remotely from where you were. So I didn't want to make any sounds or
you good.
Cat meow or anything while you were talking.
Just kick that cat to the side and be good.
Yeah, but thank you again for having me on, brother. I appreciate it, man, and thank God for this platform. And really liked your opening, because it's really, that's what it's all about, man. It's just about a conversation. One thing that I'm always cognizant of, man, and Dr. King said a thing, and he said this. He said, and he mentioned this about his children. He said that I hope that one day my children won't be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And I really, that's how I approach life. I really do. I mean, it's not about the color of anybody's skin, but it's about the content of the person's character. And
Absolutely.
so it don't matter, because I mean, good and bad happens on both sides. So my man Ray, Minister Sidnor, he said a thing. Um, he said something that was powerful. But he was saying no, it wasn't Ray. It was Jonathan Lassane. He does the sound at our church.
Hmm.
But he
Hmm.
said that there are good and bad people in this world. There are good and bad white people, and there are good and bad black people, and we run into all of them, in this life and in this walk. And you just have to take them as they come. So, but I'm gonna go ahead and let you get started, brother. I know you got a lot to say. Yeah.
You
So
know, I've been, like I said, since like Wednesday,
hmm
and like Friday, I was like hot, man. I was like real hot.
yeah,
And I started just to go ahead and do something Friday, just so I could vent. Um, but it's like the more I saw things, and I happened to see. I guess that I can't say which morning it was, but I saw when the video was first shown on a morning show. Um,
hmm
and I saw the reaction of what's her name? What's Oprah's friend named Gail?
Gail
Um,
King. Yeah.
and she kind of started getting choked up and everything. Um, and I was upset looking at that, and I'm like, what is going on? I mean, all those policemen, and you still had to be there with your knee on his neck, and y'all can't restrain him. He had handcuffs on. I mean, you couldn't tie him to the car or something. It's like all these scenarios going through your mind, and I was like just getting, I felt myself getting more and more angry, and I
hmm
really want to use a different word, but I was getting more and more angry. um, and then on the tail of that video, you see the video of the woman in the park calling the police on her brother, walking
hmm
the dog, and she's talking about she's being attacked by this black man. And it's like
Yeah.
one after another. And like again, this past weekend, my wife said something to me about that I hear about the two college students in Atlanta who get tased through the door. They
Yeah.
break the windows and tase them. I'm like, I mean, what is really going on in our nation? You know,
Yeah, man.
and it just seems like people have become emboldened with just displaying their racist thoughts and their actions. They just don't care, or they just disregard us completely. And I got something to say about that too. But it's just I don't know. It just really bothers me where I see this, and I don't necessarily the I don't want to put this on politics. I don't want to put this on the president like a lot of different people will, because he's just one man. And I'm not a Trumper. I got family members who are. I don't agree with him on a lot of things. Some things I do agree with. But you know what? Guess what? Same thing with Obama. I agree with a lot
hmm
of things he did, but I disagree with a lot of things he did as well. There's no perfect president. You
Correct.
know, I don't. And do I agree with his leadership and his style and all that? No, I don't. And I don't always think he says the right thing or does the right thing. But at the same time, he is not in the mind, or nor is he controlling all these actions.
hmm
He may condone it in his heart, whatever. But nobody knows a man's heart but God and that man. You know what I mean? But
hmm
it just gets to me when I start
hmm
thinking about all these different things that are going on, and it just doesn't make sense. So I'll let you say
I
something.
think last Friday I went through that full gamut of emotions as well. Experienced, I experienced, I grieved. I grieved, and I'm probably still in that process. But I think with it happening so often now, we are the grieving process used to be longer for us, but I think we're learning to grieve quicker now because things will pop up on our timeline, and we'll see it, and we with the desensitization that comes along with internet and social media and things like that. It also kind of we've learned as people to kind of process through things in a quicker way,
Right.
um, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Um, but I began the process of grieving because I remember watching the video and tears welling up in my eyes as I watched this brother's life leave his body. And then looking at this man kneeling on him and looking at the crowd as if like he was proud to be doing it, like he was proud to be leaking the life out of this brother's body. And so went through all of that, man. Then anger, and then all those things that go along with the grieving process. So processed a lot, man. But and I began to pray, and God took me to a passage in Second Corinthians chapter 5. And he says you have to remember that we are ambassadors for Christ. Turn back to God. And then, actually, if let me pull it up because I really want to share it with people because this is where God took me immediately. Um, and it was soothing for me in the moment.
What, what
Um,
wasn't?
Second Corinthians chapter 5, um, and verse 20. It says, "For we are Christ's ambassadors. God is making his appeal through us. For we speak for Christ when we plead, come back to God. For God made Christ, who never sinned, to be the offering for our sins, so that we could be made right with God through Christ." And that particular passage, man, really, really kind of helped me to remember who I was, first and foremost. Because in the moment of anger, and when these things happen, and of course we go through that whole range of emotions, and you want to do something, even as a believer, you want to activate, you want to do something. And here's what's real and what's honest. There's a part of us that when you have the duality of our being. And so there's our human being, there's the human side of us, and then there's the spiritual side. And our flesh wants what it wants,
Yeah,
and it always wants what it wants. And my flesh wanted to do something. And I thank God that he took me to that passage to remind me who I am in him. But it also reminded me of how flawed I am. Because it talked about that, it was through Christ that I have been declared righteous, and that God speaks to others through me, and that what I do, because am an ambassador for Him, that how I conduct myself matters. And so, as I matriculate through what I'm dealing with, I have to be careful as a believer
right,
about how and I can express my anger. It's okay, because Jesus even expressed his anger when he went into the courtyard
right,
and he flipped tables and everything. But he expressed his anger, But the Bible says, "Be angry and sin not."
right.
So I can experience and feel my anger. I can express my anger, but I have to do it in a way that still honors God. I have to remember who I am. So I can't lose sight of that, because when we lose sight of that, there's a passage, that talks about. I was on a Zoom the other night, and Ray Sidnor, he was preaching, he was teaching, and he was talking about this passage that says, how we have to be careful how we move unless we become disqualified.
Hmm.
And we can become disqualified in the eyes of people depending on how we respond.
Yeah, that's true.
We can
Yeah,
become disqualified. Like, we can lose our ability to be able to speak into somebody's life, or to be able to be that person or that conduit for God, based upon how we respond in these matters. Because a lot of people are really waiting to say those famous words, "And you call yourself a Christian."
yeah. Because
They
they look
waiting
for
to say it.
anything to accuse the
They
brethren.
waiting to say it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And so these moments we have to really be careful as believers, man. So I thank God for bringing me, kind of giving me what I needed to kind of settle me and put my feet back on the floor, and to help me begin the process in a way that that keeps him in the picture for me. Hmm.
I appreciate that, and that's
Yes,
something
sir.
that I needed to hear. Because one thing, and I was saying that I had been out for a little bit, trying to take care of some other things today, and I was really thinking about, man, I really feel like I want to go down here and be a part of this protest. Um, and but at the same time understood where I was at emotionally and really concerned that the old man in me
Mm-hmm.
would escape. You
Sure.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
that I could get caught up in it um, in the wrong way and understanding just what you're saying, but I always had to be reminded that I am an ambassador of Christ, and I
Mm-hmm.
had to somewhat tread lightly. Um, in what I do and what I say, which is why again I'm doing my best to tame my language because some just even language somebody will try to say and he's supposed to be a minister or
Sure.
whatever. You know what I mean?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So I'm careful about that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, I found myself getting upset again, even with the church because uh, just a few months ago, before the pandemic started and all that, I saw a whole lot of feeds popping up. Hey, y'all, we're going to get together. We're going to pray. We're going to walk the streets. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But I haven't seen any of that from the church,
Mm-hmm.
from any of those
Okay.
people that was doing that. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And I guess when it comes to what's going on today, this racism in faith, when is faith supposed to step in, or when are those who are of the faith, you know, when are we supposed to step in and actually do action, not just sit back and look and say, oh, that's a shame, or we're going
Correct.
to pray about it. When do we take the time to actually take action? You know
Right.
what I mean?
Because the
Be
Bible
young
tells us.
sometimes, even just, getting together on the church steps as a group and
Sure.
taking pictures. But
Sure.
when do we actually come together,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of your denomination, but the Church of Christ? And
Mm-hmm.
I ain't talking about that denomination, but I'm just saying, we the believers,
Mm-hmm.
when do we organize and say, hey, enough is enough?
Yeah, because the Bible does tell us that faith without works is dead, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, so I understand. Call to action. I get it. I remember, when the Freddie Gray situation happened here in Baltimore, the church definitely was activated in a big way for a period of time. I'll say that for a period of time, probably not long enough. And that kind of, I was talking with a friend of mine, another pastor friend of mine, Pastor Covington, and
Mm.
we were talking about that very thing. How when the whole Freddie Gray situation happened, there was a lot of churches activated and organizations and people, and then like 3 years in, man, after people stopped funneling money in and things like that, people, and then certain people, when the cameras and stuff left, people just kind of faded to black.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I seen some of those same people who faded after the Freddie Gray situations, like all of a sudden they popped up again here recently.
Mm.
So it's like, you have some people who really are activated for the wrong reason. But to your point, Mark, um, yeah, that's got to happen, man. When I think about people like Dr. King, man, who could pastor a church but still do what he did, you know what I mean, to push forward the, civil rights movement and things that he did, and all those things that he did for us as a people. When I think about even brothers like Malcolm X, who was a part of the Nation of Islam, but um, he was pushing that message of Islam, to the world, but he was also working on the behalf of people and trying to change the condition of Black people here in the United States.
Yeah.
So there's a way. There is a way to do it. There has to be a will to do it. People have to have a want to do it, brother. So I think that's what's missing. That's what's this a desire to actually get out there and to get activated and actually do something. I think no, I know that a lot of us have really become very comfortable with Sunday church, and that's kind of become our idea of what being a Christian is, and that's not the picture that we even see in the scripture. Like
Right.
those guys were activated. They were out doing the work. They were moving through lands and kingdoms and city to city and doing things and sharing the gospel and affecting lives. So I think if we need to get back to basics We get back to the basics, man. Taking care of the needs of the people, meeting the people where they are, doing things to kind of, to impact the community in a real way, meeting the needs of the people,
Right, right.
and then we can actually begin to touch them in that place where there's that void spiritually.
So all that should be the work of the church,
Hmm.
and I agree with you with that. Um, but do you think, because to some, maybe on a smaller scale, we have been doing those things, and I notice a friend Ray says COVID is keeping us apart, and to some agree, I think that may be true, and maybe that's why some may not be active. Um, I don't know. Does the what does the how does the church? It's and one thing I used to always say, I used to always hate hearing the black church,
Hmm.
because Christ didn't die for a colored church.
True.
You know what I mean? He didn't die for any particular race. So when I would hear, and we ain't gonna be segregated when we get up in heaven, and it ain't gonna be no
Correct.
black church. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So when I
Ain't gonna be
say
no black section. Yeah.
it ain't no black section, it ain't no white section, it's just we're all just gonna be up there worshiping the same way. But how can we help people? First of all, let me just say this. Just let me say this up front.
Come on,
Um,
keep it real.
Although we can always point the finger at others, okay, and we can talk about white privilege, and we can talk about all these other things, white power, all that stuff. I personally believe that sooner or later we have to take responsibility for ourselves.
Hmm.
Um, Thinking back to, like I said, I never heard the N word until I was back amongst my own people. You know what I mean? And I
Hmm.
find that word to be offensive. And I thank God that I grew up in a family that, taught us about Martin Luther King, taught us about Malcolm X, taught to us about, judge people by their character, not the color of their skin. And then they walked it. It's not
Hmm.
like you was taught it, but then you would hear those people. I was fortunate not to hear that in my family. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, that's them, not
Hmm.
us. You know what I mean? So I,
Hmm.
I find I count myself to be fortunate because the people that taught me those things walked that stuff.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And I know that's not always the case, but at the same time, I feel like all too often we point to everybody else and they cause a problem where we're not even respecting ourselves. And I just heard the other day, I don't know, it might have been earlier today, it might have been yesterday, somebody was saying, I don't know if it's on the radio, if it was some other podcast I was listening to, but they were saying there's no such thing as black on black crime. Um, Crime is just crime, you know? And
Right.
I don't agree with that. There is black on black crime. Crime is crime, but yeah, there is black on black crime. And for us to act like that isn't a reality, I think that this serves us in a sense where we feeling like, well, that's because of this and that's because of that. They talked about back in like in the 70s how they talked about how the white man ran all the guns into the ghettos and ran all the drugs into the ghettos, and how do you think all that stuff happens now? And to some degree, yeah, that may be right, but at the same time, we selling it to each other, we buying it from each other. Okay, we're supporting that as if that's our industry. All right,
Hmm.
and then we degrade our sisters. We talk bad to each other. We don't lift each other up. When do or how can the church help us, the black people, okay, become more sensitive to ourselves and have more pride in ourselves? Where, because I feel like if you don't respect yourself, how do you expect another race? How do you expect them to respect? How do you expect them to, look at you with value if you don't act like you have value yourself?
Hmm. There's a lot more pathology to that, brother, than we probably have time for today. But I'm gonna give you some context.
Okay.
So I agree with you 1,000%. That there comes a time where we have to say to ourselves, enough is enough. We have to do better. We have to start taking care of each other. We have to make sure that we're okay. We have to do the things that we need to do to make sure that as a community that we are doing the things that uplift and bring ourselves up to a place, and we start to root out those things that are in our community that don't belong here. But when you there's a the deeper thing, the deeper path out. If I take, and here's the thing, if so when you think about redlining, right? If I take a bunch, if I took a bunch of any people, I'm not even gonna say black people,
Okay.
if I funneled you into a small area, flooded you in, hundreds and thousands of you into a small area, and gave you, pulled out all the resources, gave you limited resources, but then what I did was I came back to you and I said, well, okay, I know you're hungry. I know your children are hungry. I know that you don't have money to get the things that you want. I know that you don't have this. So this is what I'm offering you to get that. Now, I'm not in any way condoning the sale of drugs or violence in our communities or anything like that. So I don't want anybody getting that. But I'm trying to get you to understand how diabolical the plan was and how the plot was. And see, and this thing goes all the way back. And I encourage any one of you, if you have not, go on Netflix and look at 13th. That documentary about the 13th Amendment, because it'll give you some context about what I'm talking about now. Because this it goes way back. Because when they
Right.
freed the slaves, they came up with a vagrancy law. So now they said, okay, you're freed. Now get off our property. And then they came up with a law that said it's illegal for you to be homeless, though.
Hmm.
So then what happened was then they started locking up slaves who couldn't get into a home. So the ones who
Right.
didn't voluntarily go back to where they were arrested. And then what they did was they established the prison loan program where they would loan inmates back to slave owners. So you ended back up in slavery. And see, this thing is diabolical. So this thing, when I tell you that it's pathology to it, so let's get back to our neighborhoods. So now I flood a bunch of you into a neighborhood. I put you all in a project building. I pull out all of the resources, very little jobs, very little supermarkets. You don't have much of anything in here. You don't have many hospitals. You don't have much of anything. There's not a lot of money circulating. You don't have much of anything. But I got a way for you to make some money.
Right.
Take this, and I need you to sell this. There's invariably always going to be someone. It won't be everybody, but there's going to be someone in that community that's going to be willing to say, you know what, I got to get mine by any means necessary.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that person is going to be willing to do whatever it takes to get theirs. And so then what you have is that person is going to say, you know what, give me that. I'm going to go do that. And then when that person begins to sell that to the people who in the community are weak in some way or who have given up because of the poverty, because of all that's going on. And then this person say, look, I got a way for you to feel better. Take this. And that person takes that and like, oh my gosh, for that 1 hour, I felt amazing. I forgot
You
all
escape.
about that. I can't pay my bill. Escaped.
Hmm.
But then I got you. But then I got you hooked. But now I don't have no more money to get my next hit. So where am I going to get that? So I got to break in Miss Sally's house to steal the money out of her little sugar can. You understand the cycle and how that works?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
there's a pathology to it, bro. And this is what has been happening in our communities. And then so then you have people. So then what they do is you have these youngins who come along and they fighting over the same resources. They fighting over corners, territory. And that's why you have all this gun violence, because it's like, oh, that's a hot corner. You got more junkies in your neighborhood than I got in mine. I'm coming over there. No, you're
Right.
not coming over here. Well,
Right.
there's more money over there. I am coming over there. Well, we're going to see about that. And then that's where you get all this gunplay. And the cycle continues and continues and continues. And it won't be until we can begin to create, like you said, brother, what can the church do? The church is going to have to create opportunities. And it can't just be all on the church. The church is going to have to be a part of the process. But it's going to take businesses, it's going to take everybody. But it's until we can create opportunities for these people, for us as a people, to create opportunities for them to say, you know what, I can use this opportunity to walk away from what I've been doing. I could go on and on, bro. I swear, man, because this is a very passionate issue for me because our
That's what I asked
situation, Tamika Mallory said something, and if you haven't seen this young sister, um, she had I mean, she said some words. So I'm going to ask my believers to, forgive some of the words she said beforehand. But if you Google Tamika Mallory, she said something, and she had this. She spoke from a podium at one of the marches, and she said that we're not responsible for the mental illness that has been projected upon us. And she's right. When you think about the fact that the way we were brought to this country, just the middle passage itself was horrific. Just the way that we were brought here in the boats and across the water, and those who tried to escape were eaten up by sharks, but then laying in our own feces and waste, stacked in there like this on top of each other, and then those who had the fortitude, who were strong enough to make it, automatically sold into slavery, and then had to work this land for free for over 400 years, man. And then all of the horrific things that went along with that. Like, brother, yep, that's my sister, Tamika Malum. She is so powerful, man. She is a passionate sister.
I've seen
Um, yeah. So, but when you think about all of the things that we've gone through as a people in this country, man, like it's really tough. It's really tough. But the beautiful part about it is that we're so resilient as a people. Our faith is so strong as a people. God has blessed and favored us as a people in such a powerful way, man. And so, there's strength in us. There's strength in us to make it out of the things that we deal with, man. But, at a point, brother, at a point, and I think this is where we are. We're at a tipping point right now. The activities that are going on around this country and around the world, even right now, this is a tipping point. And things are going to have to change because the world is getting tired of seeing things go this way. And I really believe, the scripture says there's a season for everything. To everything, there's a season. And I just feel like right now, this is a season for change. This is
yeah.
a season for change to happen, man, because this can't keep going on. It can't keep going on that Black lives are devalued in this way.
And that's what I guess that's what my prayer is now, because I remember how much hurt and how much grief and how much anger there was with Freddie Gray and even some others that follow, But like you said, 2 or 3 weeks later, when it's no longer the hot topic, it just
Mm-hmm.
kind of fades off. And I was trying to think of, I don't know if it was my friend Mike Dorsey that said something. I may have heard him say on another show, but he had been talking to somebody. I think it was Mike. And Mike, I see that you're on. I appreciate that as well. You can say if this is right.
Big
But he
Mike.
had been talking to somebody, and they said, they was talking to I think it was, yeah. The pastor was talking to a brother, a white pastor was talking to a brother, and he was like, you know what? This is just another day in a Black life. You know what I mean? It's like for some of us, it's like we've just accepting. It's like, what else do you expect? And I think we clothe that in the thought of it's always been happening. It's just now we see it more because of cameras and all that. And it's true. I mean, this is something that we've been dealing with
Mm-hmm.
forever, you know. And I do believe in some regards it's coming more to the forefront because of cameras, iPhones, Androids, whatever. I don't even know why I said iPhone because you know how I feel about iPhone. But you
You said
know,
it first too. You said iPhone first.
you
You
know,
know.
but it's all right. Um, I, I'm really concerned that a month from now, it's just going to be Brother Floyd, Brother Aubrey. It's just going to be another name on the list,
Mm-hmm.
and we not moving forward. And then seems like it gets capsulated with, oh, we got to get out and vote. You know what? Even if we do get that person out, if we don't vote the right person back in, that's not really looking for change. It's not going to change.
Brother, this is where it becomes personal. Now, this is where for us as individuals, we don't let it die. This is where for us, as of course, it may not be a large worldwide movement, but this, it's situations like Freddie Gray and the things that I've seen growing up, and some of the things that I've experienced in Baltimore City, um, that make me mentor. These are the type of things that drive me to stay engaged in young lives. And some of the brothers, I purposely mentor young men, young boys, because I feel like, because of course, there's a lot of African American men who are AWOL. They absent without leave from their homes because nobody's given men the leave to be absent from the home. Nobody's giving them that, and I hold every brother who will listen to me. I hold them accountable, and I'll let them know, like, brother, you need to be in your home taking care. So anyway, that's a whole nother topic.
No, but I mean that's where it starts at, though.
Yes, sir.
That's where it
Yes,
starts.
sir. But so for those of us who recognize the times, that's when we continue to stay busy. That's when we continue to work. And this is why I teach my young men, like, listen, I teach them about the fact that artificial intelligence is coming online. And if you don't pay attention in class, you know what I mean, as a young African American man, if you don't buckle down and pay attention in class, that McDonald's job, that's already automated. That's they already the machine already poured a drink. You understand what I'm saying? Like, so it's automation happening all over the place. This is why I'm always engaging them and teaching them principles about accountability and communication and things like that. Because if we don't engage, if we don't stay engaged and keep connecting and keep building, and that's when we keep working. So yeah, the cameras are going to go off, and a lot of people are going to go back to business as usual because you have a lot of people who are attention prostitutes. I'll say it like that. I ain't gonna say what I normally say. But when as soon as the cameras go off, they fade to black.
Yeah.
But those of us who have purpose to be responsible, who have made it our decision, have made it our life's work to really engage in this process, you know what I mean, of uplifting the kingdom and really building. And I don't care. For me, it's young people. Like, that's my gifting. That's one of the things that I do. But you have a gift. And whatever you can do with that gift, whatever that talent, that ability, whatever it is that God has given you, take that and use that. Keep working. So if you're an IT person, go to your local school and and find out if they need some type of tech work done. Like, hey, I'm an IT person. Are all the computers working okay in your school? I can donate an hour or 2 hours a week to help you work on your IT stuff around here. Like, there are
Mm.
things you can do to change tomorrow, because this is what I'm saying. Like, we can change the future by what we do today with our young people. You understand what I'm saying, brother? So yeah,
That's right.
we have to begin, like, we gotta continue to work, because you're right. And next week, 2 weeks, I promise you, this is gonna die down. This is gonna die down. And when it dies down, those of us, it's not a passing thing for us. We're gonna have to stay committed. We have to keep our feet keep our shoulder to the wheel and keep grinding, keep pushing, keep trying to make that change. Because that's the only way it's gonna happen, man. We're gonna have to keep touching lives, bro.
All
That's
right.
the way it happens. Yeah.
Um. So Ty says this, and I think this kind of goes along with what you're saying. I believe that one way we go wrong, we keep asking others, like
Hmm.
elected officials, teachers, government workers, etc. This thing just starts in the home.
Yeah,
Um,
I
and I
agree.
think that goes along exactly with what you're saying. How
I agree.
how do we make sure that we are reaching in our own homes, or like you said, your mentor reaching outside our homes to encourage those young people? Because sometimes I admit, sometimes I don't feel like they want to be engaged. Sometimes I feel like it's like pulling teeth. And I think maybe that's a matter of trust, and you have to build that trust with them. I'll never forget the last time I had the opportunity to coach some football. Um, and this incident made me stop, because I like coaching. I thought, coaching football, you giving back to the community, you pouring into some young men, you giving them a role model, things like that. You can guide them while they're at practice, give them some life lessons. But the thing is, I couldn't make it to every practice because I was like at the beginning of ministry and I was taking on new responsibilities. So I couldn't give that the full attention that it needed. And one of the last times I went to practice, and I started coming down on one of the young brothers. He's like, "Man, you're not even here. Why should I listen to you?"
Mm.
You know what I
That's
mean?
deep.
It's like,
That's deep.
when I really need you, where you at? And that hurt me to my core.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that made me realize you can't half step with the next generation. You got to be all in.
You got to. And
They got to know that you're there for them. They got to feel like they can trust you and that you love them. And it's not that I stepped away because I ain't love them. Nope. I just knew that God was prepping me for something else, and I had to give my attention to that. But that hurt my heart for a long time.
And the reason he felt that way, the reason he felt that way, preacher, is because somebody else then abandoned him too.
Yeah.
And what you were doing looked like, what you were doing looked like what that other person did to him. You understand what I'm saying? And there was pain associated with what had happened to him in the past. And so at that point, he was like, listen, I'm not going to let nobody else hurt me.
Yeah.
And so this is the thing about it. Like these young people, man, one thing about them, once you earn their trust, but you have to earn it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like you said, you have to be all in. But once you earn their trust, man, they'll open up to you. They'll let you in. They'll let you in. They'll let you in. And you can honestly speak into their lives. They will let you in. But I'm going to tell you, they're not going to, it's not an easy process to get into their world. It takes consistency. It takes like, you got to keep showing up. Like sometimes you got to take some abuse. You know what I mean? But you got to keep showing up anyway. But when they see that you're going to keep showing up, when they see that you're consistent, when they see that you're not going to give up on them, because people give up on them all the time. When they see that you're not going to give up on them, that's when they'll let you in.
Yeah.
That's when they'll let you in, man. So bro. I mean, I feel like, this situation is deep, man. I saw this one clip, man, and I'm gonna be honest with you. Like I've been seeing, and this has been a turnoff for me. And I don't, and people been tagging me, artists been doing their little poetry and all of this other stuff, man. And people been kind of tagging me in it. And I'm like, yeah, that's cute. You know what I'm saying? But like, I'm not in the mood for that right now. I'm not in the mood for a poem or like, because I really feel like that's really more about you than it is about the situation. And I don't know. This is just me being honest. This is me keeping it real. You know what I mean? So, but I saw one exchange that happened between a brother who was 31, a brother who was 45, and a brother who was 16. And they were out marching. And the 45-year-old brother was hot, angry. He was angry. The word that we use when it's just me and you. You know what I'm talking about. He was angry. And the 31-year-old was like, I understand. And he was like, yeah. So he said, but this ain't the way. And then he was like, but man, we've been doing this. We've been marching. We've been doing this. We've been doing that. He said, I understand, but this ain't the way. We can't tear up this stuff. He said, I'm sick of this, man. He said, I've been out here. He said, I was out here for a long time. I've been out here longer than you doing this. He said, I understand. And then he pulled a 16-year-old young boy. He said, but look at him. He said, this is the type of example we going to set for him.
Mm.
And then he turned to the 16-year-old. He said, I want you to look at both of us. He said, because this is going to be you in 10 years. This may be you out here doing the same thing I'm about to tell you right now. He said, because he tired I'm tired. And now you out here at 16 years old, and the same stuff is going on. Almost 3 different generations of men, and the same stuff is going on.
You gotta break the cycle.
We gotta break the cycle, and it's only gonna happen unless we who are older, bruh, start really working our way down and start dealing with the younger. And I'm gonna tell you, America as a country, she has her problems, and until she can really get honest. And see, here's the thing about America. And my brother Carlito said this to me yesterday, man, and it blessed me. He blessed me so much with this. He said, when you think about this country, we like to think of America as a full-grown adult country, but America is fairly young. He said, and we have a perspective of this country from where we are because we right up in it, we up against it. But he said, if we look at it from maybe a higher level,
Yeah.
it might be. He said, America, it's like giving birth.
Yeah.
And he said, right now, it might just be the fact that the first couple of 100 years, 300 years, it might have just been the head of that baby coming out. And right now, we might just be birthing the shoulders.
Mm.
You understand? He said, and it might, it just may be. So America still is an idea. It still is an idea. It's a great idea. It's a great concept, but we don't have it all together yet.
Yeah. We still
But
find
from its,
we still finding our way.
Exactly. But from its very inception, we've been corrupted by something that has been hideously deforming us, and that is racism.
Yep.
From our very inception, we have been deformed by racism, by the idea or the concept that because of my skin color, that I'm inferior to someone whose skin color is different than mine. And that's what we have to be honest about as a country. And that's what we got to deal with. Because until we as a country get, and see, we understand it because we've been the victims of it as a people. We've been the victims of it. But until those who are in power, and what I've been blessed by is the diversity of the people that I've been seeing marching, Mark. And
Yeah.
Mark, cut me off if I'm talking too much, bro,
No.
please, because I can go.
I was going to say the same exact thing. Even from my work, I work with a very diverse group of people. And I know somebody else has said something earlier in the text I think that you might have been a part of. But something came out from my health officer that he put it out Saturday. I didn't see it till this morning about the statement of racism for the Department of Health. And it blessed me. It changed my attitude because and it made me appreciate what real leadership is about. Because when I think one of the things that we really need is strong leadership right now. I'm gonna put this up, and again, I'm not trying to make this a political thing or a bashing thing, but I think it's a real question. What are your thoughts about Trump just holding up a Bible in front of a church across from what is that? WH after giving from the White House after giving a speech about deploying the military on protesters?
You want me to answer that question?
Go ahead, because I got some thoughts about when it comes to leadership. When it comes to leadership,
well, go ahead because you was already on that, bro. You go ahead because you was in that vein.
And again, and I taught this with Mike, who does his Bible studies on Tuesdays, and with Scott. Every year or every other year, something like that, I'll read through the Bible front to back. And I'm doing it this year in a chronological Bible. And something that really impressed upon me this time around for some reason, and maybe it's because God saw this time coming. I ain't trying to say I'm God's new mouthpiece or anything like that. I'm just saying, maybe because he's just letting me know what was happening here and I need to pay attention. But I realized that whenever leadership fell, whenever there wasn't strong leadership, I mean, even in the sense of just when Moses went up into the mountain for 40 days, the people went buck wild.
Yes, Lord.
You know what I mean? No strong leadership. As soon as leadership leaves the scene, if there's any gap, if there's any perceived weakness, the people just go crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at our country like that. Now, again, I'm not trying to talk down President Trump. I ain't trying to do all that, but at the same time, okay, maybe I am. Let's just keep it real. I don't like how he does some things when it comes to leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. And and again, using the Bible as that example, anytime, whether it be in church history, whatever, anytime there is bad leadership, the
The people
people
suffer. Yeah, man.
suffer.
Yes, sir.
And I feel like that's where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's where we're at because we don't have strong leadership. And again, I ain't putting all this on him. This was a problem before him, and it's likely to be a problem after him. But again, when you have strong leadership, and this is just racism we talking about tonight, but even the COVID-19, where's the leadership?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the leadership?
Brother, the fact that he could run a race, the fact that he was able to because one thing he was very smart and cunning about, and I don't know if it was him or if it was Steve Bannon or whoever that was kind of helping him to shape how he ran his race initially. But it was a brilliant plan because what he saw a weakness in our country, and he exploited it. He exploited it because if you go back in history, one of the things that President Trump has been on record as saying is that if I ever ran for president, I would run as a Republican because he said something to the effect that they pretty much are gullible and they will go for anything. But what he saw a weakness in our country because he said what they ran on a divisive, divide the country kind of platform, and it worked.
Yeah.
It worked, and the reason it could work is because of the seed of racism that runs from the top to the bottom in this country because racism runs all the way through this thing. And so because of that, it was able to work. And I'm going to tell you, he ran on that platform, he won on that platform, and he's continued to lead from that platform. And that's how he's been able to, but it's nothing about his leadership that says like that's been responsible or anything like that. It's I don't if we're gonna grade him as a president, man, like I gotta give him a failing grade,
Yeah.
because he has not led well. You know what I mean? And I don't, and he's said some very egregious things, and he's aligned himself with some people that are not godly. And to Michelle's question, about him holding up the Bible, he is a man that will do whatever it takes. He is a person that will do or say whatever it takes um, to satisfy his base.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he knows that there is a. Now, see, this is a whole nother subject, Mark, because he knows that to connect with the evangelicals, because there's a group of Southern evangelicals who kind of like his style. But we got to deal with the fact that it's a lot of them who were, laying hands on him and praying for him, knowing that he ran his whole race on anti-Latino, anti-Black kind of platform.
Yeah.
And it was evangelical preachers all around him, surrounding him, praying for him, laying hands on him, and all that kind of stuff, knowing that that's outside of the Word of God. Now, racism did exist in the Bible, but that's how we ended up with deacons. You remember that, Mark?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
how we ended up with deacons, because of racism that was happening, because there was a group of people that weren't being taken care of when the church was first being born, right
Yeah.
around this time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when the church was first being born, there were a group of people that weren't being taken care of fairly. And so, they had to put people in place to make sure that the people were being taken care of on an even level. But that's always been God's plan, that the playing field would be evil and level for everybody,
Absolutely.
that there was no superior, and we all are together, at the foot of the cross. So, I just feel like, he's one of the type of people that would do whatever, Michelle. And he has, he's already exposed himself. He really don't know nothing about the Bible. He don't know a thing about the Bible. But anyhow, I digress. But we have to. That's something we're gonna have to deal with. And Mark, you touched on this early on, but there's no black and there's a white church. But I feel like, um, they talk about how Sunday is the most segregated day of the week between. I forgot the time frame, but it's a segregated day of the week, man, because there on Sundays there is a black church and a white church for the most part, but there are a lot of churches who are kind of breaking that down, and I love
Yeah.
to see that. But then you have, oh, this is a wonderful passage. What we got here, Mark?
But I tell you that every careless word that people speak, they shall give an account for
Mm-hmm.
in the day of judgment. For your words will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. And that's
Amen.
something that I constantly think about. And I think, I don't know if that was the intent, but sometimes I'm encouraged by that because I know there are those, not just him, but others. And I use for myself to be very careful about when I speak to somebody or speak to somebody,
Mm-hmm.
uh, speak into somebody, to be
Mm-hmm.
careful about what I'm saying because I know I'm going to be judged for it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that people have that fear of God anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They don't think His word is real enough where they need to take it serious about what they're saying and what they're doing. And
Mm-hmm.
in the end, I think people they're going to have to answer what they say and what they do, and that
Yep.
encourages me. Now, maybe that's a wrong position for my heart to be in. That judgment is going to come for them, but that's just how I feel.
Well, I understand. That sounds like a little bit like some vengeance, but it's okay. The Lord will work it out for you,
Pray
bro.
for me about it.
I got you. I
you
got you.
know, because and
But it's
I said something to my little group before. I was like, you know what, y'all gotta pray for me because every time I see certain people on TV and they don't have their mask on because they think they above the law, I hope they get sick. Pray for me.
come on, man.
Pray for me.
Reverend,
I'm just
I'm gonna pray
being
for you.
real about it. I'm
Yeah, I'm
just
gonna
being
pray for
real
you.
about it.
Yeah,
I think, I
but
mean, again, no leadership,
hmm I get it.
no
I
example.
get it. hmm And see, and I know, and I understand you're passionate about it because you understand accountability on another level, so I understand you're passionate about it. But I'm gonna be praying for you.
Thank you.
I heard a brother say yesterday. I'm on a Zoom call with a bunch of coaches from around the country on Sundays, and one of the coaches, he said, "Man, there's a lot of people that's close to the cross, but they far from God."
Mm,
You know what I mean? He said they're close to the cross, but their hearts are far from God, man. And so that's the situation that we're dealing with, man. As believers, and these people who call themselves or claim to be Christian, but they have these racist kind of mindsets and hearts. Yeah, close to the cross, man. But you can't say that you love God and hate me.
yeah, yeah,
You can't do it.
no
You
way.
can't say that you love God and hate me. You can't do that. So, my thing is, and so I get it. We human. When we see these atrocities, yes, it's painful. It hurts. You know what I mean? But we as believers, man, we just have to be careful about how we conduct ourselves. And there's a passage. Oh, if you could, Mark, 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7, if you don't mind, brother. And share it with the group, man.
First Timothy chapter 4.
Chapter 4, yup, verse 7. I really want to deal with that, like the B section of that verse, and it's something that I have to remind myself of continually. Um, where is Let's see here. Yep, it says, "Well, that's a fancy Bible you got."
Oh, my bad.
hmm Go ahead and read that, Rabbi.
But have nothing to do with the worldly fables fit only for old women. On the other hand, discipline yourself
Yep,
for the purpose of godliness.
discipline yourself for the purpose of godliness, and that's for me. That second part of that verse, man, is my takeaway, because really that's the thing that we have to remind ourselves, that even though when we get to these places and yes, anger happens, all those emotions rush in and run in on us like a flood. But we must, in those moments, discipline ourselves for the purpose of godliness, that we don't lose it and get disqualified in some way because we have flown off the handle and done or said something that has brought shame to God and our witness. So, it's our faith as believers, man, has got to be the principal thing. Our walk has got to be the principal thing. God has to be the principal thing. And so we can't allow ourselves to be carried away. Not that we can't be affected by it, because we're going to be affected by it. I'm affected by it. You know what I mean? And I was on the corners of Pennsylvania and North for weeks when Freddie Gray was murdered. And then, but what I did was then I turned what I was feeling into action. And that's how Shooting for Peace came about. And that's how when we started doing the whole basketball tournament and the Holman projects where Freddie Gray lived, we ended up doing a basketball tournament there for the whole summer. You understand what I'm saying? So
Yep.
you move from those feelings and then you move to action. What can I do now to help change things? What can I do now to make things better? You know what I mean? Because it's not you're gonna feel it, but now what do I do with these feelings? What do I do? How do I convert this now to energy
Yeah.
that is positive? That's
Right.
gonna make a positive change. That's what I wanted to say, brother.
I appreciate it. That's a good place, I think, for us to stop at, because I think ultimately that's what has to happen. We got enough people doing a lot of talking, and we got a lot of people already got a word from God, but where's the action take place?
Mm-hmm.
And me, after a while, we can plan all we want, but if we ain't gonna follow through, what's the point of having all them meetings?
It's a waste. Yeah.
It's just a waste of time. So I'm praying again. I'm praying that in 3 weeks' time, this isn't just a byline on page 7,
Mm-hmm.
but we'll start to see a change because you always hear about the protesters, and there may be those that insert instigators that will do the rioting and all that, and that may be true. But even in that point, I think we have to, as a people, even if we're down there protesting, and again, I'm with you. I'm happy to see more than just us down there protesting.
Mm-hmm.
That there are others that are seeing the injustice of it all. But I think even then, if that means we have to turn away from the line to go to those who are saying, "Hey, we're not doing that today." If that's an action right there, I think that needs to take place as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just being done to be used to distract us from what the message is really about. That there's an injustice and we're not standing for it anymore. It's not about me getting some TV out, some broke out, or some shop or some shoes or whatever. We
Mm-hmm.
need to make sure we get one message to let everybody know that this is no longer tolerable. Not that it ever was, but it's time to make some changes.
Mm.
And I pray that that's what we do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I agree.
Well, Pastor, again, I appreciate you coming on, man. I knew your passion, especially when it came to mentoring and pointing to the future and all that. So I knew you was going to bring it as well. I did see a lot of comments. I didn't get them all on. And again, I don't ever want anybody to feel like, I really want this to be a vehicle where people can come at any time and ask any questions. And if you feel different about the leadership of the country, please call in, please comment,
Yeah.
because it's a conversation, and the conversation should be one-sided. I don't ever want a one-sided conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But I want you to hear my side, but I'm willing to listen to your side. And you never know, you may help me see something a little bit different where I need to consider something, just like I
Mm-hmm.
want you to consider something.
Yeah.
Okay. But
That's a
as
beautiful thing to reason together, man. And
yeah,
when adults are when adults can soberly come together and be in a setting and reason you know, it's a beautiful thing, man. So it's a beautiful exchange. It never has to be negative in any way, man. When we come together, yeah. So we all have opinions, and we kind of base those things based on our from the prism of our understanding. But you know, we can definitely either come to a place where there's a middle ground, or we can just agree to disagree peacefully, and that's fine. It's not a heavy thing. Yeah.
No, I was just thinking. I was watching something called Brain Games, uh,
Mhm.
and we passed an hour, but it was talking about your perception, how you see things. And I'm sure everybody's played that game at one time where you close your or you block your right eye, you see something,
Mhm.
but you put it on your left eye, it looks like a little different. And
Mhm.
really, it's really about your perception. And really, if you were to take your finger and you focus on it, you don't see what's behind it. But if you focus past it, the finger becomes invisible.
Mm. I
It's
didn't
really
know that.
about your perception. Yeah, I mean, you can do it. You can just look at your finger, you can focus in on it. But then if you look behind whatever it is, it disappears.
That's
You know what I
crazy.
mean? And you got to make sure your perception is right. And really, when you look at the left versus the right, it don't look that different, but there's a different perception. And unless you take account for what's being said on the right versus what's on the left, to be
Mhm.
political, you ain't gonna see what the real problem is.
True.
You ain't gonna see what the real problem is. So
Mhm.
I hope that people are going to see that again. Um, Keep a real conversation. Let's make sure if you have something different you want to say, we'll be back next week. Pastor John won't be here. I got somebody else lined up. Or unless he wants to come back, he always welcome. Uh, I actually had somebody else lined up, but they weren't able to make it. So I don't know, Pastor John. He may actually end up being like my Tony Randall for Letterman. For those y'all that know about my standing.
Yes, sir. I'll be
um,
honored, bro. Absolutely.
so, but I truly love you, man. I appreciate you coming on and spending the time with me.
Love you
Um,
too, bro. You
Giving your
already know.
thank you all for coming on and sharing your comments. If I didn't get it on screen, it's not that I was ignoring you. We were just having a conversation. Well, please come back next week, share with others, talk with others, and listen. I guess the big thing for me this week is, please, y'all, understand, be angry, but be righteous
There you
first.
go. Mhm.
Okay,
Yes,
um,
sir.
protest, but don't let that anger get you into sin.
Be an ambassador. Be an ambassador.
Being an
Yep.
ambassador. All right. So thank you all again. I'll see y'all next week, 7 o'clock. I'm looking forward to you. Pray for each other. Know that I love you, but know that nobody loves you like God loves you, and He proved it by giving His Son. And if you ever want to know about what that's all about, just give me a call or send me a message, comment, whatever, and I'll get right back to you. Love you all, and I'll talk to you again real soon.